Okay, today is 25th of July, and this is the third night. We're talking on the Nidana Samyutta of the Samyutta Nikaya. So now we come to 12.23. At Savatthi, the Buddha said, "Monks, I say that the destruction of the asavas attains is for one who knows and sees, not for one who does not know and does not see. For one who knows what, for one who sees what, does the destruction of the asavas come about. Such is form, such its origin, such its passing away, such is feeling, such its origin, such its passing away. Similarly, such is perception, such its volition, such is consciousness, such its origin, such its passing away. It is for one who knows thus, who sees thus, that the destruction of the asavas comes about." Stop here for a moment. Destruction of the asavas is actually enlightenment. Because when a person destroys the asavas, he destroys the uncontrolled mental outflows, which causes the round of rebirths, because the world is made up of consciousness. So the uncontrolled mental outflows basically is a flow of consciousness, the six consciousness. When one stops the uncontrolled outflows of consciousness, then the round of rebirths is stopped, and one is liberated from the round of rebirths. One becomes an arahant. And here the Buddha says, to become liberated, you must know and see five things: form, feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. These five are called the five aggregates. We will come to it later. I think it's chapter 22, the 22nd Samyutta. And these five aggregates can also said to be two things: body and mind. Form is body. The other four things comprise the mind: feeling, perception, volition, and consciousness. And this is body and mind. So all beings, we take the body and mind to be the self, or as belonging to the self, or the self is in the five aggregates, or the five aggregates are in the self. So these five aggregates we always associate with the self, you see. So you have to understand these five aggregates and see that they are impermanent, subject to conditions. There's nothing permanent in them. So when one sees and knows these five aggregates then one attains liberation. So to continue, I say, monks, that the knowledge of destruction in regard to destruction has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. What is the proximate cause for the knowledge of destruction? It should be said, liberation. Here, destruction refers to destruction of the asavas, liberation. So, the knowledge of liberation is due to liberation. I say, monks, that liberation too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for liberation? It should be said, dispassion. The word is viraga. Raga is passion or lust. So lust for life. So now, when one is dispassionate towards life, towards this world, then only one can attain liberation. But most of us, we are passionate about the world. I say, monks, that dispassion too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for dispassion? It should be said, revulsion, nibbida. Sometimes this is translated as disenchantment. No more enchanted with the world. I say to monks that revulsion has proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for revulsion? It should be said, knowledge and vision of things as they really are. Yatta bhutta jnana dastana, seeing things clearly as they really are. I say, monks, that the knowledge and vision of things as they really are too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for the knowledge and vision of things as they really are? It should be said concentration, samadhi. So you see, to see things clearly as they really are, you need samadhi, a focused mind. Most people have a scattered mind, so they don't see things clearly. It's only by development of the mind, bhavana, attaining one pointed mind, a focused mind, then only we can see clearly, just like the camera lens. I say to monks that concentration has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for concentration? It should be said happiness, sukhang. I say monks that happiness too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for happiness? It should be said tranquility or serenity, pasadi. I say monks that tranquility too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for tranquility? It should be said rapture, piti. This piti, delight is maybe a better translation. Delight. I say monks that rapture too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for rapture? It should be said gladness, pamoja. I say monks that gladness too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for gladness? It should be said faith. Faith here probably refers to the faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. I say monks that faith too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for faith? It should be said suffering. I say monks that suffering too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause of suffering? It should be said birth. Birth gives rise to suffering. I say monks that birth too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause of birth? It should be said being or existence. I say monks that being too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause of being? It should be said clinging or attachment. I say monks that clinging too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for clinging? It should be said craving. I say monks that craving too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for craving? It should be said feeling, pleasant feeling. For feeling, it should be said contact. For contact, the six sense basis. For the six sense basis, mentality and materiality. For mentality and materiality, the cause is consciousness. For consciousness, the cause is volition. I say monks that volition too has a proximate cause. It does not lack a proximate cause. And what is the proximate cause for volition? It should be said ignorance. Thus monks, with ignorance as proximate cause, volition comes to be. With volition as proximate cause, consciousness. With consciousness as cause, mentality and materiality. Then the six sense basis. Then contact. Then feeling. Then craving. Then clinging. Then existence or being. Then birth. Then suffering. Then faith. Then gladness. Then delight, piti. And then tranquility. Then happiness. And after happiness you have concentration. And after concentration you have knowledge and vision of things as they really are. And after that revulsion. And after that dispassion. And after that liberation. And after that knowledge of liberation or destruction. Just as monks, when rain falls down in thick droplets on a mountain top, the water flows down along the slope and fills the cleft gullies and creeks. These being full, fill up the pools. These being full, fill up the lakes. These being full, fill up the streams. These being full, fill up the rivers. And these being full, fill up the great ocean. So too, the ignorance as proximate cause, volition comes to be. With volition, consciousness, etc., etc., until liberation and knowledge of liberation. So here you see, the Buddha is joining the 12 links with liberation. How ignorance gives rise to suffering. And after suffering, a person goes searching for truth, goes searching for the truth, and then he comes across the Dhamma, teachings about reality, teachings about the world as it really is. Then he has faith in the teachings, faith in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. And after having faith, then gladness arises when he practices the teachings. And after gladness arises, then he gets delight. And then he practices meditation, he achieves tranquility or serenity, then happiness, and then concentration, samadhi, one-pointedness of mind, the jhanas. And because of the jhanas, he attains yatta bhuta jnana darsana, seeing and knowing things as they really are, clearly seeing. And seeing the condition of the world, seeing suffering, the reality of the world, it becomes disenchanted, nibida, or here it says revulsion. And after becoming disenchanted, it becomes dispassionate towards the world. So, person has to become dispassionate about the world, totally has no more interest in the world, see the world as suffering. Then only he can attain liberation. So, that is the sequence of events that leads to liberation. So, unless a person has become disenchanted with the world, and becomes dispassionate, there is no chance of liberation. So a lot of people maybe still cannot let go of the world. Don't think at all about liberation. Because the easiest way is, if you don't get full liberation, at least try to get stream entry. And that's the easiest. By studying the Dhamma, the Buddha says. By studying the Dhamma, the original teachings of the Buddha, we get right view. And when we get right view, we have entered the stream, studying suttas like these, in the Nidana, Samyutta, very important. There are a few topics in the Buddha's teachings, which are core teachings. If you understand these few teachings well, then the chances of attaining stream entry are great. This one, Paticca Samuppada, dependent origination, is one. Another one is the 5 aggregates just mentioned. Another one is the 6 sense basis, how the world arises at the 6 sense basis. So basically these 3 are the most important. So now we are going through this first one, Nidana. Okay, we come to the next sutta, 12.24. Then in the morning, Rajagaha, in the morning the Venerable Sariputta dressed, and taking bowl and robe, entered Rajagaha for alms. Then it occurred to him, it is still too early to walk for alms in Rajagaha. Let me go to the park of the wanderers of other sects. Stop here for the moment. This park is a forest monastery. During the Buddha's days, all the monasteries were forest monasteries. And sometimes they are called Arama, sometimes they are called Avasa. From the word avasa, you have awasa, and then they shorten it to awat, and then they shorten it to wat. So in Thailand, the monasteries are called wat. Actually, it comes from the word awasa. So these wanderers of other sects are the external ascetics, those ascetics of other religions. They are also like the Buddha's disciples. They stay in forest monasteries. So here, during the Buddha's time, the Buddha and his disciples, they maintain friendship towards all other ascetics. They don't look down on them or anything. So because if they are friendly with them, like here they can go and visit each other, and then they sometimes they ask Dhamma or they try to argue about Dhamma, and then that's the way to convert them. Then the Venerable Sariputta went to the park of the wanderers of other sects. He exchanged greetings with those wanderers, and when they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, he sat down to one side. The wanderers then said to him, Friend Sariputta, some ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, maintain that suffering is created by oneself. Some ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, maintain that suffering is created by another. Some ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, maintain that suffering is created both by oneself and by another. Some ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, maintain that suffering has arisen fortuitously, being created neither by oneself nor by another. Now friend Sariputta, what does the ascetic Gotama say about this? What does he teach? How should we answer if we are to state what has been said by the ascetic Gotama and not misrepresent him with what is contrary to fact? And how should we explain in accordance with the Dhamma so that no reasonable consequence of our assertion would give grounds for criticism? Let's stop here for a moment. This here, when they say ascetic Gotama, they refer to the Buddha. The Buddha's surname was Gotama, Siddhartha Gotama. So they knew him as Gotama. And the word ascetic is a translation from the Pali Samana. During the Buddha's days, there were two classes of ascetics. Those belonging to the Brahmin class we call Brahmanas. Nowadays we call Brahmins. And then all other ascetics or renunciants were called Samanas. And Venerable Sariputta said, friends, the Blessed One has said that suffering is dependently arisen. Dependent on what? Dependent on contact. If one were to speak thus, one would be stating what has been said by the Blessed One. I would not misrepresent him with what is contrary to fact. One would explain in accordance with the Dhamma, and no reasonable consequence of one's assertion would give ground for criticism. Therein, friends, in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that suffering is created by oneself, that is conditioned by contact. Also in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that suffering is created by another, that too is conditioned by contact. Also in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that suffering is created both by oneself and by another, that too is conditioned by contact. Also in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that suffering has arisen fortuitously, being created neither by oneself nor by another, that too is conditioned by contact. Therein, friends, in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that suffering is created by oneself, it is impossible that they will experience anything without contact. That means it is impossible that they will experience suffering without contact. Contact means contact with the six sense bases, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. Also in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that suffering is created by another, it is impossible that they will experience anything without contact. Also in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that suffering is created both by oneself and by another, it is impossible that they will experience anything without contact. Also in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that suffering has arisen fortuitously, being created neither by oneself nor by another, it is impossible that they will experience anything without contact. Let's stop here for a moment. So here, Sariputta is trying to tell them that in the Buddha's teachings, we don't talk about self. We don't talk about suffering either created by ourselves or created by somebody else that give us suffering, like God or whatever. In the Buddha's teachings, everything arises through conditions and ceases through conditions. So any type of feeling, whether suffering or happiness, whatever, all also is due to conditions and principally through contact at the six sense doors, at the six sense organs. Then only feeling arises. Venerable Ananda heard this conversation between the Venerable Sariputta and wanderers of other sects. Then when he had walked for alms in Rajagaha and had returned from the alms round, after his meal he approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and reported to the Blessed One the entire conversation between the Venerable Sariputta and those wanderers of other sects. The Blessed One said, Good, Ananda. Anyone answering rightly would answer just as Sariputta has done. I have said, Ananda, that suffering is dependently arisen. Dependent on what? Dependent on contact. If one were to speak thus, one would be stating what has been said by me, and would not misrepresent me with what is contrary to fact. One would explain in accordance with the Dhamma, and no reasonable consequence of one's assertion would give grounds for criticism. Therein, Ananda, in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that suffering is created by oneself, and then he says exactly like Venerable Sariputta has said, and those who maintain that suffering has arisen fortuitously, being created neither by oneself nor by another, that too is conditioned by contact. Therein, Ananda, in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that suffering is created by oneself, and those who maintain that suffering has arisen fortuitously, being created neither by oneself nor by another, it is impossible that you will experience anything without contact. On one occasion, Ananda, I was dwelling right here in Rajagaha, in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Then in the morning, I dressed, and taking bowl and robe, I entered Rajagaha for alms. Then it occurred to me, it is still too early to walk for alms in Rajagaha. Let me go to the park of the wanderers of other sects. Then I went to the park of the wanderers of other sects. I exchanged greetings with those wanderers, and when we had concluded our greetings and cordial talk, I sat down to one side. The wanderers then said to me, as I was sitting down to one side. Here the wanderers asked exactly the same question as they had asked Sariputta, and received identical reply. And then Venerable Ananda said, it is wonderful, Venerable Sir, it is amazing, Venerable Sir, how the entire meaning can be stated by a single phrase. Can this same meaning be stated in detail, in a way that is deep and deep in implications? Then the Buddha said, well then, Ananda, clear up that same matter yourself. In other words, you answer. Then Venerable Ananda said, Venerable Sir, if they were to ask me, friend Ananda, what is the source of aging and death? What is its origin? From what is it born and produced? Being asked thus, I would answer thus, friends, aging and death has birth as its source, birth as its origin. It is born and produced from birth. Being asked thus, I would answer in such a way. Venerable Sir, if they were to ask me, friend Ananda, what is the source of birth? What is its origin? From what is it born and produced? Being asked thus, I would answer thus, friends, birth has existence as its source, existence as its origin. It is born and produced from existence of being. Being has clinging as its source, clinging has craving as its source, craving has feeling as its source, feeling has contact as its source, contact the six sense bases, and then with the remainderless fading away and cessation of the six bases for contact, comes cessation of contact. With the cessation of contact, cessation of feeling. With the cessation of feeling, cessation of craving, etc., etc. Until the cessation of birth, then the cessation of aging and death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, displeasure and despair. Such is the cessation of this whole mass of suffering. Being asked thus, Venerable Sir, I would answer in such a way. That's the end of the sutta. So here you see, Venerable Sariputta at first tried to answer the wanderers of other sects that in the Buddha's teachings we don't say that suffering is due to anything except due to conditions. And these conditions, because suffering is a feeling, feeling arises from contact, and contact arises from the six sense bases, and the six sense bases come from nama rupa, etc. So Venerable Ananda at the end also said that if they were to ask him the source of aging and death, then he would say aging and death or suffering has birth as its source, and then birth has being as its source, etc. So this reminds me, sometimes we say somebody died. We say, oh, what is the cause of his death? Some people say, oh, he died because of cancer. Some people say he died because of old age. Or he died because of now the swine flu and all that. Nah? But actually the real reason we all die is because we are born. Nah? Because of birth, we have to die. Whether there is swine flu or there is no swine flu, we still have to die. So in the same way here, Ananda says, don't ask whether we created the suffering ourselves or somebody imposed suffering on us. It's all because we are born into a world that is a world of suffering. Because this world is also a world of suffering and happiness. Sometimes we experience happiness, sometimes we experience suffering. But the world is such, however much happiness you experience is never enough. Right? You are never satisfied. But when suffering comes a little bit, you can't stand it. It's just like if you are given a delicious bowl of soup to drink, put a bit of shit inside there, a bit of excrement, a very tiny bit, and then you don't want to eat, you don't want to drink the soup anymore. So in the same way, because this world is suffering, so when we are mature enough, then only we realize that we want to get out of suffering. 12.25. At Savatthi. Then in the evening, the Venerable Bhumija emerged from seclusion and approached the Venerable Sariputta. He exchanged greetings with the Venerable Sariputta, and when they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, they sat down to one side. Stop here for a moment. Here you see, in the evening, when Venerable Bhumija emerged from seclusion, he approached the Venerable Sariputta. You see, during the Buddha's days, the monks sometimes, like they go into the forest to meditate. There might be 2 of them, or might be 3 of them, or might be 4 of them. So they go on alms round, and they come back, they eat their food. Then they each go off to a secluded spot to be alone, and they practice meditation. And then the whole day they will be meditating. But when the sun goes down, when the sun sets, they all come to the most senior monk. They come to the most senior monk and they discuss Dhamma. They have so much respect for Dhamma that every night they will discuss Dhamma. Even though they are Arahants also, they still discuss Dhamma. Because of respect for Dhamma. So in this case, the most senior monk there was Venerable Sariputta. So Venerable Bhumija came to him. The Venerable Bhumija said, "Friend Sariputta." This friend is a translation for Avuso. During the Buddha's days, the monks called each other Avuso. You can translate it as reverend, or you can translate it as friend. Friend Sariputta, some ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, maintain that pleasure and pain are created by oneself. Some ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, maintain that pleasure and pain are created by another. Some ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, maintain that pleasure and pain are created both by oneself and another, etc. Now, friend Sariputta, what does the Blessed One say about this? What does he teach? How should we answer if we are to state what has been said by the Blessed One and not misrepresent him with what is contrary to fact? And how should we explain in accordance with the Dhamma so that no reasonable consequence of our assertion would give grounds for criticism? And Venerable Sariputta said, "Friend, the Blessed One has said that pleasure and pain are dependently arisen. Dependent on what? Dependent on contact. If one were to speak thus, one would be stating what has been said by the Blessed One, and would not misrepresent him with what is contrary to fact. One would explain in accordance with the Dhamma, and no reasonable consequence of one's assertion would give grounds for criticism. Therein, friend, in the case of those ascetics and Brahmins, proponents of karma, who maintain that pleasure and pain are created by oneself, and those who maintain that pleasure and pain are created by another, and those who maintain that pleasure and pain are created both by oneself and by another, and those who maintain that pleasure and pain have arisen fortuitously, being created neither by oneself nor by another. In each case that is conditioned by contact. Therein, friends, in each case it is impossible that they will experience anything without contact. The Venerable Ananda heard this conversation between the Venerable Sariputta and the Venerable Bhumija. He then approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, sat down to one side, and reported to the Blessed One the entire conversation between the Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Bhumija. The Blessed One said, good, good, Ananda. Anyone answering rightly would answer just as Sariputta has done. And then he repeated, just like just now. Yeah. And then towards the end he said, Ananda, when there is a body, because of bodily volition, pleasure and pain arise internally. When there is speech, because of speech, verbal volition, pleasure and pain arise internally. When there is the mind, because of mental volition, pleasure and pain arise internally, and with ignorance as condition. Either on one's own initiative, Ananda, one generates that body volition, condition by which pleasure and pain arise internally, or prompted by others, one generates that body volition, condition by which pleasure and pain arise internally. Either mindfully, Ananda, one generates that body volition, condition by which pleasure and pain arise internally, or unmindfully, one generates that body volition, condition by which pleasure and pain arise internally. Stop here for a moment. This last part, I said either mindfully or unmindfully, one generates the body volition. Here it translates as either deliberately or undeliberately. I think it's not quite correct, because the Pali word is sampajano. Sampajano normally means mindfully, in full awareness. Because if you generate volition, if you generate karma, it's always deliberately. If there is no intention, there is no karma. So probably the better word is mindfully or unmindfully. Similarly, the Buddha says, either on one's own initiative or prompted by others, or mindfully or unmindfully, one generates verbal karma, and then similarly mental karma. And then the Buddha finally says, ignorance is comprised within these states, but with the remainderless fading away and cessation of ignorance, that body does not exist, condition by which the pleasure and the pain arise internally. That speech does not exist, condition by which pleasure and pain arise internally. That mind does not exist, condition by which pleasure and pain arise internally. That feel does not exist, that sight does not exist, that base does not exist, that foundation does not exist, condition by which the pleasure and pain arise internally. That's the end of the sutta. This the first part is similar to the previous sutta, but the last part here, the Buddha says that we create body volition, that means body karma. Here the Pali word is kaya sancetana. And then the second thing is verbal volition, vaci sancetana. The third one is mental volition, mano sancetana. So because of creating this karma, so pleasure and pain arise. Pleasure and pain arise. Now what I'd like to mention here is these three sets, kaya sancetana, vaci sancetana, and mano sancetana, is concerned with doing karma. And whenever karma is involved, the last part is always mano. Here is mano sancetana. This I have mentioned previously. When we talk about sankhara, also it's the same. If the sankharas, the three sankharas, kaya sankhara, vaci sankhara, and mano sankhara, if it has got to do with karma, creating of karma, it's always mano, just like here. But when it concerns the dependent origination, it is the other set of three sankharas that is involved. That means kaya sankhara, vaci sankhara, and chitta sankhara. So here I'd like to mention this because whenever we have karma, it's always mano. Here is mano sancetana, sometimes mano sankhara. So the commentaries they interpret this sankhara in the paticca samuppada, dependent origination, as karma, creating of karma. I think that is a mistake because they have confused that mano Mano Sankara with the Chitta Sankara. That's the end of that sutta. Now we come to 12.31. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Savatthi. There the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Sariputta thus. Sariputta, in the questions of Ajita in the Parayana, it is said, those who have comprehended the Dhamma and the manifold trainees here asked about their way of conduct, being discreet. Tell me, dear sir, how should the meaning of this, stated in brief, be understood in detail? Let's stop here for a moment. This Parayana is a chapter from the Sutta Nipata, which is a book in the Khuddaka Nikaya, the last Nikaya. But the Sutta Nipata is considered one of the old books, one of the original teachings of the Buddha. So here the Buddha is asking the Venerable Sariputta, in this particular sutta concerning the questions of Ajita, there is a verse there that says, those who have comprehended the Dhamma and the manifold trainees here asked about their way of conduct, being discreet. Tell me, dear sir. So the Buddha is asking him, how do you explain this? And this was said, the Venerable Sariputta was silent. The second time and the third time, the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Sariputta thus. In the same way, Sariputta, in the questions of Ajita and the Parayana, it is said, etc., etc. How should the meaning of this, stated in brief, be understood in detail? The second time and the third time, the Venerable Sariputta was silent. So the Venerable Sariputta was not sure how to answer, so he kept quiet. Then the Buddha said, Sariputta, do you see? This has come to be. Sariputta, do you see? This has come to be. So the Buddha prompted him, and he said, Venerable Sir, one sees it, one sees as it really is with correct wisdom. This has come to be. Having seen as it really is with correct wisdom, this has come to be. One is practicing for the purpose of revulsion towards what has come to be, for its fading away and cessation. One sees as it really is with correct wisdom. Its origination occurs with that as nutriment. Having seen as it really is with correct wisdom, its origination occurs with that as nutriment. One is practicing for the purpose of revulsion towards its origination through nutriment, for its fading away and cessation. One sees as it really is with correct wisdom. With the cessation of that nutriment, what has come to be is subject to cessation. Having seen as it really is with correct wisdom, with the cessation of that nutriment, what has come to be is subject to cessation. One is practicing for the purpose of revulsion towards what is subject to cessation, for its fading away and cessation. This in such a way that one is a trainee. And how, Venerable Sir, has one comprehended the Dhamma? Venerable Sir, one sees as it really is with correct wisdom. This has come to be. Having seen as it really is with correct wisdom, this has come to be through revulsion towards what has come to be, through its fading away and cessation. One is liberated by non-clinging. One sees as it really is with correct wisdom. Its origination occurs with that as nutriment. Having seen as it really is with correct wisdom, its origination occurs with that as nutriment, through revulsion towards its origination through nutriment, through its fading away and cessation. One is liberated by non-clinging. One sees as it really is with correct wisdom. With the cessation of that nutriment, what has come to be is subject to cessation. Having seen as it really is with correct wisdom, with the cessation of that nutriment, what has come to be is subject to cessation. Through revulsion towards what is subject to cessation, through its fading away and cessation, one is liberated by non-clinging. It is in such a way that one has comprehended the Dhamma. Thus, Venerable Sir, when it is said in the questions of Ajita in the Parayana, those who have comprehended the Dhamma and the manifold trainees here asked about their way of conduct, being discreet, tell me, dear sir. It is in such a way that I understand in detail the meaning of this that was stated in brief. Good Sariputta, and the Buddha repeats the entire statement of the Venerable Sariputta. It is in such a way that the meaning of this stated in brief should be understood in detail. That's the end of the sutta. So here you see, the Buddha asked him a question asked Venerable Sariputta. Although he is the disciple with the highest wisdom, he also found it a bit difficult to answer. He didn't know exactly what the Buddha wanted him to say. So when the Buddha prompted him by saying, Sariputta, do you see, this has come to be. Then he caught the clue. So he answered the Buddha. First he explained about the trainee. That means the trainee here refers to the Pali word seka. Seka is one who is still training. And it means the Aryans below the Arahant. There are 8 types of Aryans, noble ones, holy persons. The lowest is the first path, and then that first path, after some time, will automatically become the first fruit. And then the second path attainer, and then the second fruit, third path attainer, third fruit, and fourth path attainer, and fourth fruit. These are the 8 types of holy men, Aryans. Out of these 8, only the Arahant, the fourth fruit person, or the Buddha and Arahant are both fourth fruit attainers. Only the fourth fruit attainer has completed his work, so he's called Aseka, one who does not need to train anymore, whereas the other 7 are called Seka, trainees. So here the Venerable Sariputta is explaining what is the state of the trainee. The Venerable Sariputta says, a trainee, he will see with wisdom, this has come to be. Something that exists has come into existence. And then it originates because of certain conditions, which we call nutriment. Nutriment is the condition for that thing to come into existence. And then he also sees with the cessation of that nutriment, what has come to be is subject to cessation. Then, having seen this, the trainee is practicing for the purpose of revulsion towards what is subject to cessation. For example, the things in the world, for example, somebody that you love is subject to cessation, subject to aging, sickening and dying. So you see that this person that you love, because they is subject to cessation, and it is dependent on certain conditions to keep it alive. And so the trainee, he is practicing for the purpose of revulsion towards what is subject to cessation. This that we cling to, if we see that is impermanent, that is subject to cessation, then if you are practicing for the purpose of revulsion, disenchantment towards this that we attach to, then one is a trainee. That means you are practicing to let go. Practicing to let go. You are a trainee, one who has seen but has not finished the work. Whereas the Arahant, he sees the same thing, but he has revulsion. He already has achieved revulsion towards what has come to be. Revulsion towards its origination through nutriment, and so on, through revulsion towards what is subject to cessation, through its fading away and cessation. One is liberated by non-clinging. It is in such a way that one has comprehended the Dhamma. So one who has comprehended the Dhamma fully, one who has finished his work, he has total revulsion towards all that is subject to cessation, all the things in the world being impermanent. If we cling to it, we will suffer. So the Arahant, he has totally become disenchanted with everything in the world, and he lets go. So then he has comprehended the Dhamma. That's the difference. One is practicing towards that state, whereas the other one has already achieved revulsion. 12.32 at Savatthi. Then the monk Kalara, the Khattiya, approached the Venerable Sariputta and exchanged greetings with him. When they had concluded their greetings and cordial talk, he sat down to one side and said to the Venerable Sariputta, "Friend Sariputta, the monk Molya Paguna has abandoned the training and returned to the lower life. And Venerable Sariputta said, then surely that Venerable did not find solace or comfort in this Dhamma Vinaya. And this Venerable Kalara, he said, well then, has the Venerable Sariputta attained solace in this Dhamma Vinaya? And Venerable Sariputta said, I have no perplexity, friend, because I have no doubt. But as to the future, friend, Venerable Kalara asked again. And Venerable Sariputta replied, I have no doubt, friend. Then the monk Kalara, the Katya, rose from his seat and approached the Blessed One. Let's stop here for a moment. So here, the Venerable Kalara informed Venerable Sariputta that this Molya Paguna has disrobed. Then the Venerable Sariputta said, then it surely means that this person who disrobed, he did not find comfort in this Dhamma Vinaya. Then this Venerable Kalara asked him, you mean to say, Venerable Sariputta, you have found comfort in this Dhamma Vinaya? And Venerable Sariputta said, I have no doubt at all. Then he asked him, what about the future? He also he has no doubt. Then this Venerable Kalara went to see the Buddha. Having approached, he paid homage to the Blessed One, sat down to one side and said to him, Venerable Sir, the Venerable Sariputta has declared final knowledge thus. I understand, destroyed is birth, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. I'll stop here for a moment. So you see, this monk, Kalara, he asked the Venerable Sariputta, and whether Sariputta has found comfort in the Dhamma Vinaya. And Venerable Sariputta says he has no doubt, that means he has found comfort in the Dhamma Vinaya. But this Kepo, this Venerable Kalara, he went to tell the Buddha a different thing. Instead of repeating exactly what Venerable Sariputta said, he said, Venerable Sariputta says he has declared final knowledge, that means he has attained Arahanthood. So that's why a lot of people are like this. Sometimes you hear something and then you interpret something else and then you go and tell somebody else in a different way and misunderstandings arise. So this is what happened in this case also. Then the Blessed One addressed a certain monk thus, come monk, tell Sariputta in my name that the teacher calls him. Yes, Venerable Sir, that monk replied. And he went to the Venerable Sariputta and told him, the teacher calls you, friend Sariputta. Yes, friend, the Venerable Sariputta replied. And he approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him and sat down to one side. The Blessed One then said to him, is it true, Sariputta, that you have declared final knowledge thus? I understand, destroyed is birth, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is no more for this state of being. Stop here for a moment. So in the Buddha's Vinaya, among even you have attained Arahanthood, liberation, you are not supposed to declare it publicly. So the Buddha asked Venerable Sariputta, whether you said you already attained Arahanthood. Then the Venerable Sariputta said, Venerable Sir, I did not state the matter in those terms and phrases. That means I didn't say exactly that way. And then the Buddha said, in whatever way, Sariputta, a clansman declares final knowledge, what he has declared should be understood as such. So the Buddha says, it doesn't matter how you say it. If you say you have finished your work, then you have declared that, people understand that you have finished your work. And then Venerable Sariputta said, Venerable Sir, didn't I too speak thus? Venerable Sir, I did not state the matter in those terms and phrases. So you see, Venerable Sariputta also is quite tough. He has to stand up to the Buddha. He said, didn't I tell you? I didn't say like that, ma. And then the Buddha said, if Sariputta, they were to ask you, friend Sariputta, how have you known, how have you seen that you have declared final knowledge thus? I understand, destroyed is birth, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is no more for this state of being. Being asked thus, how would you answer? So here the Buddha kind of changes the topic, ask him something else. And he said, if they were to ask me this, Venerable Sir, I would answer thus. with the destruction of the source from which birth originates, I have understood. When the cause is destroyed, the effect is destroyed. Having understood this, I understand. Destroyed is birth, the holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. Being asked thus, Venerable Sir, I would answer in such a way. I stop here for a moment. So here you see, Venerable Sariputta also is quite blunt. You see, if somebody asks me, how you know you have finished your work, he said, I will answer with the destruction of the source from which birth originates. I have understood. That means, if I have destroyed the source of birth, then I have understood that I have destroyed the cause of birth. Then, because I have destroyed the cause of birth, therefore birth is destroyed. The holy life has been lived. In other words, what work had to be done, I have done. And then the Buddha said, but Sariputta, if they were to ask you, but friend Sariputta, what is the source of birth? What is its origin? From what is it born and produced? Being asked thus, how would you answer? If they were to ask me this, Venerable Sir, I would answer thus, birth, friends, has being as its source, being as its origin. It is born and produced from being. Being asked thus, Venerable Sir, I would answer in such a way. And the Buddha said, but Sariputta, if they were to ask you, but friend Sariputta, what is the source of being? Being asked thus, how would you answer? If they were to ask me this, Venerable Sir, I would answer thus, being, friends, has clinging or attachment as its source. But Sariputta, if they were to ask you, but friend Sariputta, what is the source of clinging or attachment? What is the source of craving? What is its origin? From what is it produced? From what is it born and produced? Being asked this, how would you answer? If they were to ask me this, Venerable Sir, I would answer thus. Craving, friends, has feeling as its source, feeling as its origin. It is born and produced from feeling. Being asked thus, Venerable Sir, I would answer in such a way. But Sariputta, if they were to ask you, friend Sariputta, how have you known, how have you seen that delight in feelings no longer remains present in you? Being asked thus, how would you answer? If they were to ask me this, Venerable Sir, I would answer thus. Friends, there are these three feelings. What three? Pleasant feeling, painful feeling, neither painful nor pleasant feeling. These three feelings, friends, are impermanent. Whatever is impermanent is suffering. When this was understood, delight in feelings no longer remain present in me. Being asked thus, Venerable Sir, I would answer in such a way. Good, Sariputta, this is another method of explaining in brief the same point. Whatever is felt is included within suffering. But Sariputta, if they were to ask you, friend Sariputta, through what kind of deliverance have you declared final knowledge thus? I understand, destroyed is birth, the holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done, there is no more for this state of being. Being asked thus, how would you answer? If they were to ask me this, Venerable Sir, I would answer thus. Friends, through an internal deliverance, through the destruction of all clinging, I dwell mindfully in such a way that the asavas do not flow within me, and I do not despise myself. Being asked thus, Venerable Sir, I would answer in such a way. Good, Sariputta, this is another method of explaining in brief that same point. I have no perplexity in regard to the asavas spoken of by the ascetic. I do not doubt that they have been abandoned by me. This is what the Blessed One said. Having said this, the Fortunate One rose from his seat and entered his dwelling. Then soon after the Blessed One had departed, the Venerable Sariputta addressed the monks thus. Friends, the first question that the Blessed One asked me had not been previously considered by me. Thus I hesitated over it. But when the Blessed One approved of my answer, it occurred to me, if the Blessed One were to question me about this matter with various terms and with various methods, for a whole day I would be able to answer him with various terms and with various methods. If he were to question me about this matter with various terms and with various methods, for a whole night, for a day and night, or for 2 days and nights, for 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 days and nights, For 7 days and nights I would be able to answer him with various terms and with various methods. Then the monk Kalara the Katya rose from his seat and approached the Blessed One. Having approached, he paid homage to the Blessed One, sat down to one side and said to him, Venerable Sir, the Venerable Sariputta has wrought his lion's roar thus. Friends, the first question that the Blessed One asked me had not been previously considered by me thus. Thus I hesitated over it. But when the Blessed One approved of my answer, it occurred to me, if the Blessed One were to question me about this matter for up to 7 days and nights, I would be able to answer him with various terms and with various methods. And the Buddha said, Monk, the Venerable Sariputta has thoroughly penetrated that element of the Dhamma, by the thorough penetration of which, if I were to question him about that matter with various terms and with various methods for up to 7 days and nights, he would be able to answer me with various terms and with various methods. That's the end of the sutta. So you see this kepo, last, what the Venerable Sariputta said, again he go and report to the Buddha. And since the Buddha has a high regard for the Venerable Sariputta, the Buddha agreed that if we were to question him for 7 days and 7 nights or so, he would be able to answer for 7 days and 7 nights. So this is quite an interesting sutta that shows that Sariputta is because his knowledge, his wisdom is so high that he dares to answer the Buddha quite bluntly. Oh, I think we've gone through enough suttas tonight. We stop here. Anything to discuss? That means he's trying to say, I think, that he is equanimous. He does not love himself like most people. And on the other extreme, he does not despise himself like some ascetics who have not attained the equanimous state. They are practicing so hard, and they despise the body, despise themselves. They might commit suicide and all these things. But he says he does not despise himself, probably to show that he is equanimous, he has attained the equanimous state. You see, normally the Buddha and the Arahant disciples, they don't generally inform people that they have finished their work. But only that when they have attained enlightenment, generally they would go and see the Buddha and tell the Buddha that they have finished their work, but in such a way that there's no self. They don't say, oh, I've done my work, I already attained Arahanthood. They never talk like that, because they have no more self. Instead, they will say, if a monk has finished his work, he would have such state, or such, he would have, his character would be such and such. So, in that way, the Buddha knows that they are trying to say they have finished their work. So, later when the Buddha had entered Parinibbana, then the monks and nuns who had attained enlightenment, they would go and see the Venerable Ananda and declare to the Venerable Ananda that they have attained enlightenment. So that's one thing. The other thing is sometimes lay people ask the Buddha or the Arahants directly whether they have attained this state and they attain that state, like attain psychic power or attain Arahanthood or something. And being confronted thus, sometimes if they don't say anything, then people will think they have not attained, you see. So in that state, sometimes they are forced to say that they have already attained. So even the Buddha also sometimes lay people ask him directly, then he say that actually it's a rude way of asking, but he say nevertheless he will satisfy them with an answer, then he will say that he has finished his work. The other thing is sometimes like the Buddha asked the monks, his disciples, not to show psychic power. But he himself sometimes when he thought the situation that situation, it's good to show, then he will show his psychic power, like some of the suttas, where this ascetic challenge him to a debate and all these things. And then the Buddha, after defeating the ascetic in front of a lot of people, then he will just fly off into the air and go back to his monastery. So that's just to show them how great the Buddha and his monks are, in case they had any doubt. Just now I mentioned is from the Sutta Nipata, and the Sutta Nipata is one of the books in the Khuddaka Nikaya. No, I mean now it's in book form but in the Buddha's time it's just one of the suttas, one of the many suttas. Yes, it's the same. It's the same. Only thing, consciousness, you can, in the Paticca Samuppada, there are two interpretations. One is that you can see it, for example, like the traditional interpretation, avijja paccaya sankhara, sankhara paccaya vijnanam. Vijnanam is consciousness. So because of ignorance, you have volition. And because of volition, that means the will to live. You have the will to live. And because of the will to live, you have consciousness. Now, in that case, that consciousness, two ways to interpret it. One is, if you follow the traditional three lives interpretation, they say because of past life ignorance, but then the sankhara, they don't interpret as will to live, they interpret it as karma. You create karma in the past life. And because of that, in the present life, that consciousness is reborn. That consciousness starts again. That's one way of saying. That means that consciousness refers to the birth of a being. But another way of seeing is that you don't need to talk about past life. You can consider it as moment to moment. Every moment in our existence, we have ignorance. And because of ignorance, we have the will, the strong will to live. And because of the strong will to live, our consciousness arises. As I mentioned, consciousness is not a constant stream. Consciousness arises momentarily and passes away. And you need something to make it arise again before it passes away. And what is that something? That something is that will to live. So prolongs that consciousness. When there's no more will to live, a person dies. Consciousness will stop. So you can consider it like that, moment to moment. No, there are different interpretations. The volition, the will to live and the karma is a different interpretation. But that sankhara is interpreted by the traditional monks, follow the commentaries and all that as karma. And that is a condition for sankhara, is a condition for karma to arise. So here I'm saying that sankhara is the will to live. As a traditional interpretation, according to commentaries, is karma. But then there is a fault with this, because if you say if it's karma, then if a person does not create karma, it means he will stop existing. A person continues in samsara because of craving, not because of this karma. So, for example, there's a type of beings that are born in the fourth jhana plane, and they are unconscious, asanya satta. They have the mind does not work, they only have a body. So in that case, they don't create any karma. But does that mean because they don't create any karma that they will become liberated? No. Even if they don't create any karma, after that they're still reborn. On the other hand, somebody like Angulimala, he has created a lot of karma. You think, okay, he has created so much karma, he must go to hell. So he cannot get out of samsara. But no. even though he has created so much heavy karma, and he should go to hell, but because he understood the Dhamma and he practiced so hard, he let go of the will to live. Because when he let go of craving, let go of attachments, everything he let go, including the craving for life. Let go. So when he died, he is not reborn. Consciousness stops. So in this case, you can see that the consciousness stops. Vijnana does not come only when you let go. When you let go of craving, when you let go of attachment, when you let go of the will to live. Craving, of course, you have craving for existence, craving for non-existence, and craving for sensual pleasures. All this you let go. Then only a person can stop the consciousness from arising again. Not to do with karma, and that does not have to do with karma. It has to do with letting go of our craving. You see, in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, when they describe how the Buddha attained Nibbana, he entered the fourth jhana, and coming out of the fourth jhana, he entered Nibbana. So it shows that the state of jhana is a very high state, where your mind has got to be tuned to the fourth jhana, then only you can enter. So that's why the Buddha says, a person cannot become liberated without the four jhanas. In one of the suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya, Buddha said it is impossible to attain destruction of the five lower fetters, which means anagamin and includes the arahant, without the four jhanas. So even if a person at that moment he does not enter the fourth jhana, but when he dies, if he wants to enter Nibbana, that state of mind at the last moment must be similar to that absolutely cool state of the fourth jhana. Then only he should be able to enter the Nibbana. Otherwise, without that state of mind, I think it's impossible. If your mind is a scattered mind, is a very disturbed mind, how can you enter Nibbana? It's not a focused mind. That is whether you have already attained it before. If you already attained it before, the mind can revert to that. If it is your everyday mind, if a person constantly abides in the fourth jhana, then when he's dying, even he dies of cancer, after a while he does not, is no more conscious of the body. Then he goes back into his natural frequency, his everyday state. His everyday state is abiding in that jhana, then he can easily enter that jhana. Consciousness creates the world, it's not consciousness. Consciousness continues. Basically, it doesn't go anywhere. It's just that your mind, your consciousness, will show you you are in a certain realm, or you are in a certain. So your consciousness is producing the world for you. It's not that your consciousness is in the world. It's the world is inside your consciousness. There is a sutta called the Mahakamma Vibhanga Sutta, where the Buddha says there are some ascetics, they have developed psychic power, but their psychic power is quite limited. So they see a person living a good life. After living a good life, that person dies and is reborn in the woeful plane, either as a ghost or animal, or maybe even in hell. Then they see, how come this person does good deeds in this life, does not harm people, and then he goes to the woeful plane. Then they say there's no such thing as karma. The karma says, if you do good, you should get good, right? You should be born in a happy destination of rebirth. But this fellow is born in a woeful destination. On the other hand, the opposite may also be true. Somebody leads evil life, doing harm to others and all that. After death, he's born in a happy destination, maybe as a human being, or maybe even as a low deva. Then this ascetic says there is no karma. But the Buddha says it's not that. Buddha says if his psychic power were greater, he would look at many lifetimes. If he look at many lifetimes, that person may have done good and evil in many past lifetimes. So when that person is dying, it depends on which karma comes to his mind. If he happens to think of good karma, then he goes for a good rebirth. If he happens to, his mind is fixed on evil karma, then he goes to a woeful pain of rebirth. Yes. So that's why taming the mind is very important. If you are old enough like me, you will know that there are some people, almost the whole life, they are very pleasant, very pleasant nature, and quite good and all that. Towards the end, just before they die, their character change, change into a very ugly person, into a very bad-tempered, nasty person, So it shows that the previous life character has come back to him, because never disciplined the mind. So a lot of us, we have, the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We have two types of character in us. We have the angel in us. We also have the Satan, the Mara, the evil one inside us. So how, when you die, which one will become greater? If you don't tame your mind, you don't cultivate good qualities, towards the end, all your unwholesome character come up, then too bad for you, you go to the animal realm or something like that. That's why don't rest on your laurels. A lot of people we think, I never do evil, I don't harm people, Yeah, there are 5 greatest offenses. If you commit any one of these 5, after you die, you have to go to the hell realm. One is injuring a Buddha, how do you say, shedding the blood of a Buddha. A Buddha, you cannot kill the Buddha. A Buddha, his life is determined by his will to live. I forgot to mention the Buddha, before the Buddha entered Nibbana, it is mentioned in the sutta, he let go of the will to live, If he did not let go of the will to live, he would not die. Mara was chasing after him to enter Nibbana. So many times Mara, Satan, asked him to enter Nibbana. He refused. He said he has not finished his work. Finally, when he finished his work, he said, okay, I'll be 3 months' time, I will enter Nibbana. At that moment, he let go of the will to live. Then it seems the whole world quaked. So even a Buddha has to let go of the will to live. So most people, we have to let go of the will to live. That's why it is the will to live that conditions consciousness. So coming back to this 5 offenses, if you commit these 5 offenses, you definitely have to go to hell the next lifetime. One is shedding the blood of the Buddha intentionally, harming the Buddha. Second one is killing an Arahant. Third one is killing your mother. Fourth one is killing your father. And the last one is causing the Sangha of monks to split into 2 Sanghas. That means you must have at least 8 monks. So one side at least 4 monks, the other side at least 4 monks. You split the monks, harmony of the monks, then that is great evil karma. Even if you don't split them into 2 Sanghas, which is called a schism, even if you do a lesser offense, say like there are 4 monks, and then you divide them into maybe 2 monks and 2 monks, it's not called a schism. There's another word for it. But I feel that also is very bad karma. You may not go to hell, but it's still very bad karma. Within the law, you can decide. Unless the person has made a will. There are some people, they are already given clear instructions. Not to put them on life-saving equipment or anything like that. Like Ajahn Buddhadasa, he saw Ajahn Chah suffer for so many years. So he told his disciples, when I become unconscious, I go into a coma like that, don't give me oxygen and all that thing to keep me alive. He said, just let me go. So if a person has given strict instructions like that, now you have to follow his wish. Otherwise, the family decide. But the family also cannot do certain things, like take his life. The most you can do is take away the life support equipment, the oxygen and all that, then let him struggle. Whether he wants to live or not depends on his will. If his will to live is strong, he will continue to survive. Okay, can we stop here for tonight?